Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Stand on Guard. My apologies, we're a little late this morning, but we had a internet failure at exactly 9 o'clock. Luckily, we got it back on again. Thank you for watching today. It's Thursday, September 19th. The excitement is building in the House of Commons. I know the bloc is saying they're not going to support Pierre Poilievre. We'll talk about that in a minute. But the real issue, your pension fund is being raided by Mark Carney. When we come back, the truth, but how fascism is coming to Canada, real fascism.
So we are in a very precarious position in this country. We need political change, but we also need the resolve to resist.
Yes, please like the station. You've been doing that a lot lately, and you've been subscribing. Thank you for all the subscriptions we've had this week. We are just literally about 250 away from our 30,000 mark, which is significant. I hope we can get there by the end of the week. Thank you so much for your support. Again, it really does mean a lot. We can continue to do this, which I think is a very important mission here, giving you all the news you need to know. And as much as we can anyway in one day. We might even expand this to twice a day if things continue as well as they have been continuing. But I want to talk about two things this morning. When we say fascism, what do we mean? Well, as George Orwell famously said, even by 1945, 46, when he wrote this, he said, fascism has come to mean something that's unpleasant, meaning it really had no definition that was meaningful anymore because it was applied to any sort of political movement, any sort of political outburst that somebody found unquieting or disquieting or unpleasant, as Orwell said. Well, fascism was a political philosophy. It was an economic philosophy, ideology, based on what they called a corporatist system of government, where the government controlled business. Business was in the pocket of the government. This is what fascist Italy was all about. It's how it operated. Nazi Germany, the same, especially armaments industries in Nazi Germany. As long as the industry did what the government said, the government ensured that they paid lower taxes than they perhaps would have otherwise. And they ensured they had labor peace, got rid of the unions. They ensured that they just kept on profiting, but they had to do what the government mandated. They lost their freedom, their economic freedom. And this is what happened in Italy and in Germany. So fascism allows private enterprise. You ask any small c conservative, libertarian, do you support capitalism? Are you a fan of free enterprise? Hey, you bet. I used to wear an Adam Smith tie in the 80s. 3 cheers for Adam Smith. Big time. But that's classical liberalism. That's the idea that free enterprise is free. And of course, fascism doesn't believe in that, and neither does Canada. Because I tell you what's happening here, it is frightening. Now, the other day, we talked about this. This is how Mark Carney, who of course has been hired as the economic advisor to Pierre Trudeau in the Liberal Party. Is it Pierre Trudeau, the prime minister? How do you draw a line between that? How do you separate these so-called watertight compartments? How do you separate Trudeau, the Liberal Party leader, from Trudeau, the prime minister of Canada? I doubt you can. And Mark Carney, of course, is an advisor to the Liberal Party and to Justin Trudeau, who's the leader of the Liberal Party. But he's not in the government, so he's not accountable to government rules. Here is a picture of him. We talked about this the other day when, of course, the government's giving $2 billion to Quebec-based Telesat. The chief executive officer of Telesat is Dan Goldberg. Here he is with his chum, Mark Carney. Mark Carney's already spreading the liberal largesse amongst his buddies in the corporate world. And this is about, as I said, this is corporatist. This is what fascism was based on. The government cozying up to private industry cozying up to government. And who gets the benefits? the super rich, the elites. Forget small business. Forget people who can't compete with these folks. Forget people who don't have friends like Mark Carney, who are sitting next to Justin Trudeau, who have Justin Trudeau's ear. These are the people who benefit from the corporatist fascist system of government and economics. This is exactly what's happening in Canada. Telesat gets $2 billion. You remember Michael Barrett, conservative MP, sends a X post out to Elon Musk, thinking, well, worth a try. And he asked Elon Musk, and I shared this with you the other day, how much would it cost for Starlink, Elon Musk's internet company, to provide rural internet service in Canada? 2 billion? Musk said less than half of that. So tell us that's getting the money because Mark Carney wants them to get the money because this is a Quebec firm that's friendly to the Liberal Party. Obviously, this is what's going on here. Worse to come. Worse to come. Mark Carney is also very involved with Brookfield. And we'll find out exactly how involved in a minute. Now, I'm going to read from this article. This is Michelle Rempel Garner, wrote this for Substack. And I'm going to read a couple of paragraphs from it in a minute. Now, this is based on another article here talking about how Brookfield wants to build a $50 billion pension fund. This is based on what is called the Maple 8. These are the 8 largest pension funds in Canada. And this all began when Chrystia Freeland said, hey, you know, the CPP, the Canada Pension Plan, should be investing more in Canadian companies. So let's get Mark Carney on the file. Let's get Mark Carney on the file. And that's exactly what happened. So now Brookfield says, hey, we'll look after your pension fund for you. We'll make sure you're investing in Canadian companies. Let us add the CPP and the QPP as part of our pension fund scheme. So they want to get your hands on your pension. The Liberal government is going to give your pension away, your CPP away. We'll have more information about this. I want to read this. And this is from Michelle Rempel. I know Michelle Rempel. She said some dumb things over the years. She's also done some good work. She backed the wrong leader in the last Conservative leadership campaign. She said some very disturbing things about the LGBTQ agenda. And I won't get into the latest controversy about the Conservative Party wanting an alternative to the Online Harms Act. We don't need an alternative. We need the Online Harms Act dead. But that's for another day. But here's Michelle Rempel talking about Brookfield. Mark Carney is the chairman of Brookfield. Do you read my lips? Chairman. This is how Mark Carney makes his millions of dollars while he's out there peddling climate change for the United Nations, while he's been the governor of the Bank of Canada, he's been the governor of the Bank of England. He's a globalist. He's locked in with the globalist agenda and the globalist elites. He's also the chairman of Brookfield. And here's Michelle Rempel here talking. The Logic, meaning the other article I just reported from, reported that the multinational mega investment company that Mr. Carney chairs, Brookfield, has recently started talks with the federal government and Canada pension funds to back a new multi-billion-dollar fund that the company is raising. Worse, the report stated that Brookfield is seeking $10 billion tax dollars from the Liberal government for this fund. The brazenness of this move is stunning, even if measured by the already low bar of Mr. Trudeau's wobbly ethical standards. Right on, Michelle. There should be no way in hell that Mr. Carney, who is chairman of Brookfield, would have a direct personal interest in a new Brookfield-run multi-billion-dollar fund and should be acting as the Prime Minister's key economic advisor while his company is trying to get its grubby hands on the pension savings of Canadian families and seniors, or $10 billion out of your wallets. I imagine the Liberals' newly appointed economic manager, namely Mark Carney, imagined this conversation on this subject and would go with something like this. Brookfield, Mark Carney. Hey, Mark, mind giving my investment firm $10 billion? Liberal economic advisor, Mark Carney. Sure, Mark. Sounds dandy. Checks in the mail. Now, I could go on from this article. I encourage you to read it, and the other article, which I had up there briefly. Here it is, the Brookfield article. I would encourage you to read that. But if you want some more information about what's actually happening here, here is a great summation of it.
From Thornhill.
Carbon tax Carney is just 9 days into his role as de facto finance minister, and he's already cashing in on his conflicts of interest to enrich himself at taxpayers' expense. Yesterday, we learned that his firm is about to get a $10 billion sweetheart deal from his friends in the Liberal government to run his fund. You can't even make this up. Every day, there are new questions about his conflicts. Just days after his official appointment, his close friend, the CEO of Telesat, got more than $2 billion of your tax dollars to build a broadband network that other firms could have built for half that price. While Canadians struggle to put food on the table, it's never been better to be a well-connected Liberal. It's time to come clean. How much does carbon tax Carney and his firm at Brookfield pocket in management fees from taxpayers in this new fund? And if they don't plan on answering us, I'm sure the Ethics Commissioner can shed some light on the brazen corruption of Canada's unelected finance minister who's gunning for the PM's job. Right. In the meantime, they get rich and Canadians get fleeced.
That's a great summation. This is concise, it's coherent, and I think it's completely comprehensible. This is what's going on. And once I go back to what kind of a government is this? Where you have this cozy relationship between the super elites and the super rich and the government. It's called fascism. And I use that in the original sense of it being an economic philosophy, which it was, as much as communism or Marxism is an economic philosophy. Fascism was too, and it is today. What you see in China is often fascist more than communist, where you have private sector, super rich corporations working with the government. This is what's happening in Canada. This is called fascism, technically and literally. This is what fascism is. Let's hear more about this weird relationship that Mark Carney is forging between himself and the Liberal Party and Justin Trudeau as his personal economic advisor. Is this potentially a spillover? Is there a spillover between the private sector and the public sector? Does being an economic advisor to Justin Trudeau mean you're an economic advisor to the government of Canada de facto? Let's listen to this exchange between Michael Barrett and the Ethics Commissioner.
Last week, Justin Trudeau announced that Mark Carbon Tax Carney is going to be advising him on all matters finance. And days after, a company that Mr. Carney has a financial interest in received $2.14 billion in an announcement by the Prime Minister. Mr. Carney has been hired by the Liberal Party, it appears, to avoid the scrutiny of the Conflict of Interest Act. Does this present a skirting of the? It clearly presents as a problem to Canadians. Is Mr. Carney a ministerial advisor by the definition set out in the Act?
No, because he is advising the Liberal Party. What the Liberal Party does or does not is not government action. The government may adopt the advice.
Do you see a difference? I mean, von Finkenstein doesn't thinks there's a difference. I don't see a difference. Do you?
That was given by Mr. Carney, but it's in effect they're adopting the advice of the Liberal Party who got it from Mr. Carney. It's the way they structured it right now. He is not a ministerial advisor.
So it's an appropriate practice then for parties to provide, we would imagine, non-public information, for the government to provide non-public information to their employees at the party when those employees have serious financial positions in companies that could stand to benefit from that information?
Well, the party gathers information from all sorts of sources, etc. They can pay for it, they can get it for free, etc. They then use that information in order to position themselves and decide on their policy. That is a perfectly normal procedure. There's nothing of conflict of interest here.
So there's no conflict if Mr. Carney receives non-public information from the Department of Finance and then uses that to provide advice to the government because he's employed by the party and not paid by taxpayers, though the advice that he provides could materially benefit him and his other.
Your supposition is that he receives non-public inside information from the Department of Finance.
Point of order, Chair.
That that's
just
the supposition you make. I have no proof of that. If that.
Okay, clearly there's a problem here. Just imagine if Pierre Poilievre was prime minister right now, and he said he was going to hire the CEO of a large oil corporation to be his economic advisor, and that the CEO would be not working for the government of Canada. He's working for the Conservative Party of Canada, and he's advising the prime minister, me. If Pierre Poilievre attempted to do that, can you imagine the outrage? Canada is in the hands of the oil corporations. Canada is controlled by big oil. Canada is controlled by one of Pierre Poilievre's Alberta cronies. That's what the response would be. Clearly, there is a problem here. Is Justin Trudeau listening with his left ear, as the Prime Minister of Canada, but with his right ear as the leader of the Liberal Party of Canada? So somehow there's a separation here. This is all balderdash, and you know it as well as I do. Now, Trudeau's a little bit upbeat lately. Have you noticed? Here he is coming to Parliament. Just too cool.
See you.
Jackass is on. He's just playing it. Cool.
How are you doing?
Good stuff.
Merci.
Do you think he's going to appear on the Tonight Show the way he's making his entrance? Oh, my goodness. Okay, so what's happening with the non-confidence vote? Well, let's have a look at this. And you're going to hear me really rail against the treasonous party in the House of Commons.
Good evening, everyone. The political suspense and drama about an imminent election is over tonight, at least for now.
Absolument rien.
The Bloc Québécois leader revealing today he will vote against a Conservative non-confidence motion next week, giving the Liberals the votes they need to survive a major test and keep governing. But with a by-election blow this week and declining poll numbers, they've got their work cut out for them. CTV's Mike Locouture on the latest measure to address a contentious issue and why a cabinet minister is stepping down.
Pierre Poilievre's attempt to topple the Liberal government was promptly blocked by the Bloc Québécois.
Alors, à la question, la réponse est non.
Yves-François Blanchet was quick and to the point, saying his party...
So here's this fat-ass pinhead, leader of the Bloc Québécois, a traitorous, treasonous party that inhabits the House of Commons, that has no business being there, collecting taxpayer-funded salaries and ultimately taxpayer-funded pensions. For what? Encouraging the separation of Quebec from the rest of Canada, encouraging the dissolution of the country. They have no business being in the House of Commons. They have no business stopping a non-confidence motion because they think it's all about Quebec's interest and not Canada's interest. I hope you're as sick as I am of these people standing up in the House of Commons and just blowharding it for their own interests and for one province alone. They do not represent this country. This man makes me sick.
Don't vote with the Conservatives because it doesn't help Quebecers. It will be without a long-serving cabinet minister. CTV News has confirmed Transport Minister Pablo Rodriguez will announce his leadership bid for the Quebec Liberal Party tomorrow.
Obviously, he leaves a hole.
Rodriguez's departure will force the Prime Minister to shuffle his cabinet, but how big of a change Trudeau chooses to make remains to be seen.
All right, so we've got Pablo Rodriguez, another rat sinking or leaving the sinking ship. And what does that mean? A cabinet shuffle coming up? Is Mark Carney going to enter the cabinet? Why would he want to when he's got his cake and he can eat it too as an economic advisor to Justin Trudeau? Yeah, they'll do a cabinet shuffle shakeup, but it's one more rat fleeing the sinking ship. Let's listen to this exchange in the House of Commons yesterday between Pablo and Trudeau.
NDP leaders sold out Canadians to sign on to a costly coalition that doubled the debt, doubled the housing costs, sent 2 million people to food banks and 1,800 tent encampments. He voted 24 times for the carbon tax. And since he did his dramatic video, he's refused to answer 40 times whether he'd vote non-confidence. Now that he knows that the Bloc is going to keep the Liberals in power, he'll stand up and claim that he's voting against. Mr. Speaker, why won't the NDP stand up when it counts so that we can end this costly coalition and elect a common sense government?
Before the Prime Minister takes the call, I'm going to ask the honourable member from New Westminster, Burnaby, please, to only take the microphone when his voice is recognized. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Okay, so once again, the Bloc is standing in the way of Canada. The Bloc is standing in the way of Canada. We need an election in this country. And that has got to happen. And notwithstanding what the Bloc wants. We'll continue.
Mr. Speaker, once again, we see that the Leader of the Opposition enjoys his political games, enjoys chasing after his own political interests, and has not a second to care for Canadians' interests. He's actually in a bad mood because inflation has come down for Canadians. He doesn't care about their interests. That's why we're going to continue to deliver for Canadians. We're going to continue to step up with investments that are going to support Canadians, fight climate change, and build a brighter future for everyone.
A brighter future.
The Honourable Leader of the
Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, after 9 years of this costly NDP carbon tax coalition, what's happened? What's up? Taxes up, costs up, crimes up, time's up. What Canadians need is hope. By choosing a common sense government that axes taxes, builds homes, fixes the budget, and stops the crime so they can earn powerful paychecks and pensions that buy affordable food, gas, and homes in safe neighborhoods protected by a strong military. Why can't we bring it home now?
I think that's a pretty good encapsulation of the kind of Canada we all want.
Speaker, that little performance shows just how much the Leader of the Opposition loves his slogans, but actually doesn't put forward any.
I'm going to ask, as I'd asked a previous member before, to please not take the floor unless they're recognized. I'm going to ask all members, please, to allow the member to. I'll ask Prime Minister, Right Honourable Prime Minister, to start from the top.
Boy, Mr. Speaker, point out the performance of the Leader of the Opposition, and his colleagues get all upset because they know that he doesn't actually care about Canadians. He doesn't care about the programs we're delivering. He doesn't care about stepping up to support Canadians. He's actually in a bad mood because inflation has come down to 2%, Mr. Speaker, and it ruins his little just inflation slogan. He is so upset because...
You see how that gets under Trudeau's skin? Just inflation? He can't stand that. It really bothers him.
Because he's cared about his own interests and not the interests of Canadians. We're going to stay focused on the things that matter for people while he spins little rhymes and tosses out his slogans. We'll take this seriously like we always have.
If anyone had any doubt, it's definitely Wednesday.
Can you believe this speaker is still
The
standing
Honourable
there?
Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the just inflation tagline works now better than ever. He can try to call himself Rocky Balboa and play fight songs to aggrandize himself as the star. But the people lined up at food banks, 2 million of them every month, know better. The people who are living in the 1,800 Ontario tent encampments know better. The 35 homeless encampments in Halifax, the people there know better. They know that we need to fire this costly carbon tax coalition so we can elect a common sense government that will bring it home for them.
Right on. Great response. Great comeback. A couple of things before I go. Tomorrow, million-person march. If you're in Ottawa, go to Parliament Hill by 8:30. We'll be listening to speakers all day. I'm the master of ceremonies. We'll be listening to people who care about children. We'll be marching. And this will be a show of religious unity based on our opposition to gender ideology in the classrooms and our love for our children. Hands off our kids. And if you're not in Ottawa, go to your provincial legislature. If you can't make that, if you can't make your provincial capital, go to your local mayor's office. This is across Canada tomorrow. We're going to get not 1 million, not 1.5 million, but probably 2 million Canadians on the streets tomorrow, protesting Justin Trudeau, protesting provincial governments that don't want parents to have their rights, protesting school boards that think they control the agenda. That's happening tomorrow, September 20th, Friday. Be there. We got another breaking news story that I hope to come back with later. Blacklock's report is reporting that Canada is still giving foreign aid to China via the LGBTQ fund that Justin Trudeau created. Bizarre, weird, but that's what we've come to expect from this corrupt Liberal government. We'll be back again, perhaps today and certainly tomorrow, with all the news that you need to know.